Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? It's not going to be me. We do have to get the intro figured out, and we need to get some form of tunage going on to start the show. I realize I missed the little intro that we used to have. That was fun. But anyway, that intro with the music used to get me copyright striked every day on YouTube, but no worries. Every day, even though I would try and tell them we have the rights and blah, 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 they just ignored it. What are you going to do, huh? Cubes says, made it for a live one. I hope I can stay. That nothing calls me away. Good day, Nolan. We like the triple rhyme. Hope I can stay. Nothing calls me away. Good day. Way to go, Cubes. General Motors to you, indeed. Good morning, gang. And GM, lifelong mechanic, Cube says. Can't help but the GM make the GM joke about General Motors. Good morning, Counting Crew. Suntech is operational here too. Yo, Chatelet, escape the Matrix, indeed. Good morning, Counting Crew. Tommy D-O-U. If the moral high ground means broke and demoralized, just give me the fiat. Yeah, that's what's going on. There is a big broke and demoralized section of the Bitcoin community going on. But we're going to talk today about how we're about to be winning. We like winning, right? We're going to talk about winning today. We're doing some winning lately, even though the price sucks. We hate the price action, but that's all right. We're going to make it, everyone. We're going to make it. All right, let me get set up. So reminder, everybody, we're not going to be doing a show tomorrow. It's a holiday here in Quebec, and I got to get out of Dodge. We got a pool party, birthday party, St. John Baptist Day, St. Johnny the Baptist, who we love. It's his day. It's his feast day. Far from demoralized, Escape the Matrix 91 says, we don't stop winning. Exactly. We're going to talk about the mega winning going on today. We like the winning. Winning is good. We're fans of the winning. Hope you enjoy the holiday tomorrow, says Escape the Matrix. Oh, it's going to be fun. We're headed to another one of the homeschool families. Their farm and cottage is not far from ours in Vermont, and they're actually our neighbors here in Montreal. It's one of the damnedest stories. I'll tell you about it. It was just because we like serendipity and synchronicity and all the rest of it. So I've probably told on this show before, but it was hilarious. It was 2 years ago. I was coming back from Barbados. It was the Barbados return trip. And that year, we had switched condos over the winter. We had another one closer to the hockey arena, and it's up on the hill. I didn't really like it. I knew bikes, and it delayed the biking situation with my kids for like a year because we're right in the city, and it was like up the hill versus down the hill versus city. That was the only horizontal, not on a incline thing. So I moved down here to the Old Port, another condo situation, and just to be near all the bike trails and the canal and all of that stuff. So anyway, long story short, my first night, we literally arrive. We stopped in New York City for a couple of days. I think I got in at 6 or 7 and at night, and we just got into the condo, and I went and got a few groceries. And the rules had changed in Montreal over that year about groceries. There were now no more plastic bags at all at the grocery store, and I went to a grocery store right nearby. So literally drop my kids off, go to the grocery store. We still have IGAs in Canada, if you remember what IGAs are in the United States. I know you still have the canned goods in IGA, whatever, but we still have a few of the IGAs here. So I go into IGA and do all my groceries, but now the bag thing is a problem. So I go there, and they've only got the paper bags, and everything I bought is so heavy. And I'm like 2 blocks from the house, so I can't even really call a taxi. And I'm only just figuring this out at the last minute. So I'm sitting there saying, oh, what do I do? And I turn around, and the only other family in the area that lives like us they leave for the winter too. They're a homeschool family. They're part of our homeschool group. And they're the first person I see in line. It's all the homeschool kids. They're even babysitting or like kid grouping with a bunch of other kids that my kids know from the homeschool. And it's just the mom. And I turn around, I see her there, and I say, "Hey." And so she says to me, we catch up, and I say, "I need a ride home actually, because I don't have any way to get home because of all these grocery bags they gave me. They're not plastic. I can't hold like 10 of them at once. They're going to break. They're all these paper bags." She said, "No problem. Where do you live?" And I told her where it was. It's literally the next building over, and it was like a 2-block drive. So the best possible situation I could have ever had was just sitting right there in front of me, and literally the first person I saw when I got back. So fun stuff, and we had a great time. So there you go. Maybe commission original music theme. It's a jazz season in Montreal. Lots of musicians in town. Just saying, very good idea, Sanding Plane. I ought to do that. Good morning, Nolan and team. No Suntech here today, but that's okay because of the Mediga winning. Funny story. I sent my dad the group shot of Camp Nakamoto. He says to me this morning, "Your group doesn't look like a bunch of wealthy people." I cracked up. "Dad, we're not fiat rich." There you go. IDA, incredibly delicious apple. IGA cubes. IGA. Pick up a nano bag. Those things are awesome. It's a reusable bag that packs into itself. Those are very cool. I love that you homeschool. Wish I had. You got to do it. Nano bag. Escape the matrix here with a nano bag. Link in the chat. Let's roll, Bitcoiners. Indeed. Chatelet, send us up in Florida and slurping the coffee. We love it. MMK 007. Let us acknowledge Major Sunrise. We're doing great with the coffee as well. Coffee doing great. And that will help us with the Bitcoin that is at 63,800 US trash tokens. Let me make sure if that price was refreshed and I haven't noticed any. No, 62,000. I was way off. $62,100. I'm 1,000 US trash tokens off because I did not refresh. Not looking good, but what is looking good is the rest of the show. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. All right. So let us begin. Quick acknowledgement, right? We like to start with some NPC news, which we're going to do much quicker now that we're shortening the whole show. But as I have been doing for a few weeks now, we've been talking about the thermostats and the air conditioning and what you need to know. And I know a lot even saying, not the air conditioning stuff again, Nolan. We get it. It's 20 or it's 78 degrees. We understand, right? We understand. But do you really understand? Look at this, guys. The heat is here. South Jersey. Now is the time to make sure your AC can protect the people you love. It's not so simple, everyone. You sit there and you say, "I know what I'm supposed to do," but you need a strategy, and it's all to protect the people you love. It's the moral high ground. Don't you understand? It's the moral high ground. Thankfully, also, we got the update on Kansas. What's your best temp to set your AC at to save energy and stay cool in Kansas? You guessed it. It's 78 degrees also in Kansas. I'm starting to notice the pattern here. We also got it from Tennessee, right? Tennessee summer heat is here. What's the best AC temperature in Tennessee? What is it? It's 78 degrees there. You guessed it, everyone. I think you guys are getting better at guessing it, right? I bet you can guess most of these. But again, you got to protect the ones you love with this AC. It's really important, right? Because the truth is, climate change is a form of oppression. The voices affected most by the environmental crisis. Thank God HBO has done a documentary, The Welcome Table. It brings together people from across the world whose lives have been dramatically altered by the climate crisis. You can go watch that documentary, The Welcome Table, over on HBO. We wonder this too. Daily Dot asking the questions: can humans adapt to climate change? Can we adapt the environment? We don't know. Nobody knows. We're waiting to find out. Can we do it? We need a Q drop on it. France has a plan to adapt to the weather. Here it is. France bans drinking alcohol in public. That'll work to counter the brutal heat wave. That's what you got to do, guys. You got to ban alcohol, obviously, right? You know, I've been focusing all this time on air conditioning as a tactic and a strategy, especially when it comes to the thermostat. I didn't know that you can just stop drinking alcohol and it will suddenly get cooler. That's great news. So that is our NPC news update of the day, folks. That's what we got from NPC News. Now, do you guys know a bit of the story on the thermostat controls when it comes to Europe and Paris and all these places with the no air conditioning? Because they don't even know what we're talking about, this 78 degrees stuff. First of all, what the fuck is Fahrenheit is what they're saying. And then second of all is what's a thermostat? They don't get any of that stuff. Here's what I know about what's going on in Europe with their anti-AC stuff. It's hilarious. Tony Obey here talks about it because it's been, you know, it is really hot, 96 degrees, 104 inside, 96 degrees outside, 104 degrees inside, no AC. I remember I've told you this story on my honeymoon, no AC down in Corsica, and every single day was mid 90s, high 90s. Absolutely couldn't handle it, right? And can't even do that, right? More time, love the hour for it, more time for thermostat watching, exactly. So here we see from Tony Obey says, after a hellish week in Paris Airbnb with no AC, 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside, 108 degrees Fahrenheit inside, I started looking into why the French are so opposed to AC. There's many reasons, bureaucracy, poverty, etc., but the main one is decades of environmental campaigns that convinced people AC is the devil. The result, you can't escape the heat. Most buses, metro lines, and shopping malls have no AC. This Monday, 850 schools are closing because classroom temperatures exceeded 104 degrees Fahrenheit. In Nantes, they built a brand new train station and hospital without AC for environmental reasons. The station is now partially closed because it's become a furnace that endangers travelers. Hospitals are covering windows with emergency foil blankets to protect patients. The French demonize air conditioning because it creates carbon emissions that contribute to climate change. Never mind that France already has one of the most carbon-free electricity in the world thanks to nuclear. For that, it accounts to less than 1% of global emissions. They also oppose AC because it's just displace the problem by dumping heat onto the street. Never mind, the studies suggest that even if an entire city were air conditioned, the increase in outdoor temperature would be at most about 1 degrees Fahrenheit. Instead, people are willing to endure 104 degrees indoors to avoid marginal increase outdoors. This ideology kills more people than firearms in the United States. Across Europe, between 50,000 and 70,000 people die from heat every year, mostly the elderly and the poor. Compare it to roughly 44,000 Americans killed by firearms. For comparison, despite having a similar population, deserts, and more extreme temperatures, the United States has only about 2,500 heat-related deaths per year thanks to widespread air conditioning. That's what bothers me most. The moralizing posture completely detached from reality. Isn't that the most Fiat thing? Isn't AC resistance one of the most Fiat-induced things? You have to be completely brainwashed to believe there is a moral high ground in sweating your balls off in the summer, and that makes you think you're a better person. It's just too good. But here's how you can see how this moral high ground argument is leveraged very often in the case of the Fiat industrial complex and the type of brainwashing that goes on in the Fiat world, this moral high ground just because you're suffering from the weather. I share this anecdote because I know it's shocking to Americans. Here, schools or hospitals reaching 104 degrees would be unacceptable. The absurdity is immediately obvious to us because we're looking from the outside. We see the gap between moral intentions and the real world consequences. Don't we understand this very well in Bitcoin? Haven't we seen this for a long time? Aren't we the most advanced when it comes to this gap between real world incentives and consequences and actions and what the entire Fiat edifice and the brainwashing and the fake moral high ground have brought people? But we're no different. It's true, we have plenty of other things that we do that with, right? But this whole piece here of the moral high ground is what's coming into view as we move forward with the fiat apocalypse. Even it's not a it's just it's even what's happening with this terrible story in Montreal. I don't know if normally I don't do mass shooting things or public shooting stories here on this show. I normally hate them. I won't go over too many of the details, but indeed there was a shooting in my hometown yesterday immediately as I finished the show. And I'll explain why this connects to the moral high ground of temperatures in Paris in a second. So yesterday there was the shooting. This police officer was assassinated. There's another image out there of a lady police officer shooting a civilian. This was the civilian. He's a rabbi at the local Chabad. I got a Chabad right this building here. No, not that one. You can't really see it. Let me show you. We've got about 4 Chabads in Montreal. Anyway, one of them is right there. That's it right there. That's a Chabad. That's a Chabad. So I actually know the Chabad around here. I didn't know this rabbi who was killed. Some people are saying it looks like, many people online saying the woman cop shot him dead accidentally. A lot of people, myself included, I don't love woman cops because in my town, a young boy, a teenage boy, was killed by a female cop. He was having some, divorced parents, not a great family, blah, blah, blah. He was in the middle of the street one morning ranting like a lunatic with a pellet gun, a BB gun or whatever, threatening people, and wasn't that big of a deal. He was like outside of the pizzeria, and woman cop lost her cool and shot him. So I'm naturally a little prejudiced. I know the kid who was killed by the cop in my town. It's still kind of in the news because the woman cop she quit and everything like that. But no real justice for the dad and all that. I served the dad in the restaurants when I was young. I remember the kid when he was a little baby, in the restaurants that I worked at and stuff like that. I'd see him around town. Comes from an old, very successful football family in Canada, Canadian football dynasty, MVPs and great receivers and all that kind of stuff. So a long-time family in that sport. And the kid was just not doing great. His dad was a bit of a dilettante, more of a skier. He was an adopted son, not like the other ones, not the one who was killed, but the dad. So he wasn't really part of the football family thing. The dad could be a bit of a dick, I'll be honest. He wasn't my favorite customer. My dad got along with him great. I wasn't enemies with him or anything like that. Sometimes you have to be polite to people. I never had an incident with him, but you have to be polite to people you don't really like if you're working in the service industry. That was something we had to do. Anyway, this woman cop at the time did that. So I was immediately, when I saw the woman cop shoot the guy yesterday, I was immediately like, oh, another one of these woman cop things. But I thought about it more and I realized in the heat of the moment, you got to give her a bit of grace and understanding. Her partner, this guy here, is dead on the ground, and you don't have time to think, you just shoot. So I won't fall into any of this woman stuff about guns and cops in this case. So there you go. But the important part of the story that we can see here is the killer you're seeing in all of the news. He sent out a manifesto, 104 pages. And the fake news is trying to say that it's all... the fake news is trying to say that he's a incel right-wing guy. Ezra Levant, I haven't read the whole manifesto. They're not even publishing it. They're not letting you see it, but Ezra Levant and Rebel Media did publish it today, so you can read it. And he did read it, and this is what he says. The Montreal murderer was a Jew-hating communist censor. The murderer in Montreal has been named Seth Hatfield from Alberta. He murdered a policeman in a shooting spree in a Jewish neighborhood in Montreal. And by the way, the neighborhood is not far from where we regularly do our Bitcoin meetup here. It's across if you're seeing in some of the pictures, if you've seen anything from this shooting, across the highway is a big mall, and in that mall is a beautiful big brand new mall, like one of these luxury malls, and across from it is where in the food court we often do the Bitcoin meetup, or we did do the Bitcoin meetup last year. So that whole world over there is indeed a heavily Jewish neighborhood. Soon afterwards, government journalists at the CBC and elsewhere started describing the manifesto that he had left behind, but none of them published the actual document. They just quoted the odd phrase from it and called him an incel. That's a term for someone who is involuntarily celibate or someone who didn't do well with women. The usual suspects were doing the media circuit claiming that Hatfield was a right-wing extremist. But if that was true, why was the manifesto being shown only to selected government-friendly journalists? Why were the rest of us blocked from seeing it ourselves? Well, that just changed. Because indeed, I looked around for stuff about him after the killing. I wanted to know who it was and what the motivations were and things like that. And you weren't able to find anything. Suddenly you find out he's an incel, and the fake news is only saying the word incel, incel, incel again. Alberta, right-wing guy, blah, blah, blah. Turns out not so much. It's true that the murderer had extreme ideas about women, but that was only one small part of his worldview. In most of the rest of the rambling remarks, he was indistinguishable from left-wing politicians like Bernie Sanders, Avi Lewis. Avi Lewis is the NDP leader in Canada, the Orange team, or half the Liberal cabinet. He praised communism. He called for the abolition of private property. He railed against the Jews and Zionism. And like Mark Carney himself, he demanded the censorship of the internet for pornography. One of the reasons why he was in that Jewish neighborhood was the pornography, apparently. Apparently there's a bunch of, I guess Montreal is deep into the porno business, which I sort of understood. I didn't understand there was a bunch of like production companies and holding companies and financiers, and it's all up in that neighborhood. So that's what he wanted, was pornography banned from the internet. So I wouldn't, I'd say Ezra Levant is going a little far here, saying he demanded censorship of the internet. I don't know if censorship of pornography is in the same boat as the censorship around what we all talk about with the COVID stuff we're going to talk about today, and the other forms of censorship. Now, I don't like it, right? The People versus Larry Flint, I think, was probably an important case when it comes to determining this stuff. But the famous Penthouse magazine case that was out there. So, I think you can separate pornographic censorship from the wider story of censorship, but I don't really care. It's not something I'm not going to die on that hill. And I don't think there is any moral high ground to get out of it. So we're not going to spend too much time on it. But I would say Ezra's, playing around here with this statement. But the more important thing is you're not getting any reporting or discussion that he's not a right-wing guy at all. Like, not even close. More on the communist side and more on that side. So, important to note. And to me, the big story here is that no one is actually talking about this. And again, in Canada, there is some kind of a media blackout over this. And the media blackout over this is primarily because, this country is consolidating on censorship. It's consolidating on not really even talking about things and ignoring things. And that's primarily one of the ways in which persuasion in Canada has to go forward. It's not just the brute force censorship. It's also just ignore it. Just ignore things. Don't talk about them. Don't give the context. Don't even bring it up. You're going to see that more and more. Here's Mark Carney yesterday. He was caught on a hot mic making fun of members of parliament, saying they're useful for votes. And the funny thing is, there he is laughing. They're useful for votes instead of saying they're useful. Now, I agree with him. But you got to understand, this is a guy who didn't even get a majority government in Canada, who scammed to get the majority government, and is spending the past 2 weeks just ramming through bills that would allow for censorship, control over the internet, the VPN stuff, Bill C-22. There's 3 separate bills that will all create the ability to censor and direct what media say even more in Canada. And they're just going to ignore it again. And they're not going to make fun of him. They're not going to criticize him for making fun of the uselessness of his own cabinet. You're not going to see anything like that. So Canada has to resort to these types of censorship activities now, primarily because of how poor they've become. Canada is in no economic sense able to go and espouse its virtues and its successes. It's just turning the whole mood of the country. Instead of talking about things, it turns it into anger and redirects it. Yesterday, there was a big trade in hockey in Canada, and the capital, Ottawa, basically gave away a 25-year-old superstar because he didn't want to play for Ottawa anymore. Why? Well, he's from the United States and he was part of the gold medal winning team. And he was treated so poorly by Canadians when he got back by all of this Mark Carney elbows up brainwashing, all of this media that continues to try to be on the moral high ground in Canada. It continues to try to say, oh, America sucks, this and that. Trump's a fascist. So Canada continues to try to use the moral high ground, and in doing so, does a bunch of the old Vietnam, we had to bomb the city to save the city type of inconsistent ideas. So the reason why the trade happened in Canada is Canada's too poor, the taxes are too high, so American players no longer want to play hockey in Canada, and the players feel the hate. They feel the hate. So here, the funniest thing is Canadians don't seem to understand that the ridiculous and hateful reaction to the Americans going to the White House after winning Olympic gold is what caused this. You're seeing more and more people think of that, right? And this is all happening, right? So this hockey player is gone. And like I said, it's happening right at a moment where, while Canada can go on about all of these things, even the financial component, right? When I said they're too poor to start bragging about good things they're doing, it's because all they're doing financially is just doing more subprime bailouts, right? Here, Mark Carney is talking about bailing out the Vancouver condo industry. So, the Canadian players, the moral high ground, hockey, the economics, have all created a circumstance where Canadians aren't even having these conversations, right? Like, this is obvious to Americans and us. This is him commenting as well on the hockey, saying, I saw this shit a mile away. First, they booed our anthem. 95% of Team USA players are extremely patriotic, and the other 5% are patriotic. Then you clown on the players who play in Canada, telling them they shouldn't go to the White House. They yelled and screamed at them the second they got back to their respective teams. This was inevitable. You don't think they took notice how Jack Hughes was received all across American arenas with the chants of USA and loud cheers? This one is inevitable, and it was coming miles away. And there indeed is the player who was traded. He's going to play with his brother now. And his dad got put into the Hall of Fame yesterday. That was also big news for the family. So they're doing great. But just to show you the trouble Canada's in, I mean, look at this story. This is a police officer yesterday in Canada who's saying that his officers are running the plates of attractive women coming out of coffee shops and gyms. And he's calling on officers who use police databases to meet women to quit. Why don't you fire the police officers? If you know they're committing crimes and are bad police officers, why do you have to go and make a public plea? Because again, no one will talk about this stuff. You can guess who the police officers are. Take one guess and you'll be able to figure it out, I'm pretty sure. So this moral high ground case, this is Ottawa's own police force. The same people who went after everyone during the truckers, the Nazis, are here. Is this the same as what's going on in the UK with the rape gangs? How different can this be than the rape gangs? It's the same story. They can't fire the cops for literally stalking women and looking up their information. Not a good idea. What kind of officer? So there you go. This idea from the moral high ground being blown away here in Canada shows that there's, basically no moral high ground persuasion left on the left. And that's why all these, discussions about empathy, you see it a lot, right? The empathy piece, that's all that used to work. You're seeing it now fall apart more than ever. John C. Riley here on video yesterday talking about that. He's saying, why aren't people in the right wing concerned about human rights? They're human too, he says. Elon Musk says, don't be fooled by the empathy trap. He says, empathy is not a trap. Empathy is a superpower. It's what makes human beings exceptional, our ability to look inside ourselves. And that's an actor, John C. Riley, saying, Elon is not empathetic. But people on the right are also not empathetic and they don't care. So he's using the mind reading, right? So he can read the minds of Elon Musk. John C. Riley, this clown, can read Elon Musk's mind. Wow. Wow, John C. Riley. But of course, here, the thought process of people like John C. Riley goes like this. I have beliefs. My beliefs are empathetic. Empathy is the ultimate good. If your beliefs contradict mine, you must lack empathy. You are therefore evil. And so they weaponize the word empathy to mark their opponents as evil, despite the fact that their beliefs are almost always short-sighted, contradictory, self-serving, and even vile at times. That's why most of us think empathy is a trap. And so this empathy trap piece and the ability to leverage empathy to persuade people is one of the big broken pieces of the fiat flywheel. Fiat required the moral high ground in order to propagate its propaganda. And the minute it lost its moral high ground, which is what's happening, and we're going to see it's just all lost today. Without the moral high ground, they have no way of communicating. It breaks down in the same way it would be like breaking down the Bitcoin consensus mechanism and changing parts of how it functions and is able to continuously roll over and do what it does every 10 minutes. So by breaking the moral high ground piece, you're creating an instance where the fiat industrial complex and the persuasion technique of the moral high ground is removed from it, which means it can't really do its job. And you're seeing that just a perfect case in point of that with the fight between Ro Khanna and Elon Musk. Just as you have John C. Riley here talking about how Elon Musk has no empathy, we're seeing the other op on Elon, and that's with Ro Khanna. So Ro Khanna was the one going on that thing where Elon killed hundreds of millions of people through Doge, going after the USAID money, right? So again, USAID, we've understood for a long time, USAID was a big propaganda arm and was used for, we've seen it in Latin America, communism. It was used to shape people's minds. It was used to manufacture consent. It was used as a human rights and moral high ground leveraged tool in order to persuade people. And that's what Ro Khanna tried to do here. Oh, Elon cut the money and he killed hundreds of millions of kids. So Elon did what the only answer. He decided to sue Ro Khanna. So we have a case now of Ro Khanna being sued by Elon Musk. Elon Musk calls for the arrest of Ro the robber Khanna. Not only is he suing him, he's calling for his arrest. The U.S. Department of Justice announced that USAID official and several executives pleaded guilty in a bribery scheme involving more than $550 million in contracts. Yet Ro Khanna is claiming Elon should be investigated over Doge spending cuts. The standard applied by Doge was very simple. If taxpayer money is being sent as aid, there should be a way to verify who received it and make sure the money isn't being stolen or misused. The DOJ is uncovering corruption connected to USAID contracts. Ro Khanna is attacking the person who pushed for transparency. Elon simply asked where taxpayer money was going and whether it was actually reaching the people it was meant to help. Ro the robber Khanna should be in prison. We'll see if that happens, but we'll see what happens. Probably going to go that way. Here, Elon Musk killed 4.5 million kids. That's democracy as hell, buddy. See you in court. That defamatory as hell. See you in court. Hey, can we just talk? I just want to talk about stuff, please. And this is where he is trying to have an argument, begging and pleading with Elon. But this is it, right? The moral high ground is lost with all this stuff. Here's another one of these Medicaid ones, $3.7 billion fraud scheme. What? 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 So this guy, I guess, was in Turkey running away in May 2025, but U.S. officials have brought him back to Miami where he can face justice for his crimes against the American people. That much money, unreal. And here's what we understand from all of these NGOs and fraud. Stephen Robinson talking about politics, saying here, it's getting harder to dismiss the connection between NGOs, USAID, and Democrat campaigns. Here's how you can see what was going on with that money laundering all the time. Act Blue is under investigation. USAID has been shut down. Southern Poverty Law Center is about to go down, so that makes sense. They've got negative 3 million trash tokens over there, RNC, with 125 million trash tokens. Prof. St. Onge saying the entire left is tax-funded AstroTurf. And that's what's falling apart, right? And that's what we're seeing all of these right-wing parties win in Latin America. Of course, here's Colombia. So he's going to go full Bukele mode. We talked a bit about that yesterday. And we're seeing more of the connections, of course, as well with USAID and how it all comes together, this entire Pentagon, deep state money ties that relate to USAID. And as we found out yesterday as well, Fauci and the rest. And that comes from the Tulsi Gabbard drop, Promethean action with the connections on that. I'll play that in a second. Ben's pointing out here, USAID funded the Maidan Revolution in Ukraine in 2014. That directly led to 2014-2022 Donbass war. 15,000 have been killed. And the subsequent 2022 Russia-Ukraine war, 300,000 killed. So did USAID supporters murder 315,000 people? And Promethean Action says it's even worse than that. I will play the Promethean Action video here for you. This is Tulsi Gabbard and Promethean Action in action, talking about USAID, Fauci, Danzig, and everything that went along in Ukraine and America for the 2020 election. And it's not looking good for these folks. So here we see the cover up, and where should I go? Is it the big picture? We'll play this one.
So now you've got the machine. Fauci, Danzig, Metabiota, Wuhan, Ukraine, all of it wired together by Pentagon money and Obama's 2014 operations. And here's where it turns criminal. When the machine produced the worst pandemic in a century, the same man who built it was handed control of the investigation into how it started. Gabbard's Thursday releases do two things at once. They point to a lab origin for the virus, and they document Fauci's cover-up of it. The documents show Fauci's consistent, years-long advocacy for gain-of-function research. But they open with something stunning. A May 2020 assessment from Lawrence Livermore's Z program, the unit that evaluates advanced weapon threats, including bioweapons, for the intelligence community, a group which has access to everything.
There's that, and then the big picture piece.
40 labs in Ukraine alone. Gain-of-function work on pathogens that kill half the people they infect. A pandemic that killed millions and handed the world's would-be planners the exact emergency they'd been waiting for. That's not a string of accidents, that's a program. So what was the program for? Start with Ukraine. The Russians were complaining about dangerous U.S. biolabs on their border before the 2022 invasion. Think about it. COVID had already happened. Gain-of-function was clearly going on. Those complaints were waved away as propaganda, even though the Russian government named them as part of the reason for going to war. Gabbard's June 12th release confirms 40 U.S.-funded labs in Ukraine, some doing gain-of-function work, many permitted for the most dangerous pathogens on Earth. One project involved a strain of avian influenza with a 50...
So again, we're seeing all the information now, and just like in Canada, where they can't talk about this stuff. They can't talk about the hate. They can't talk about the manifesto. They have to make it right wing. all of the media has to ignore Tulsi now, because acknowledging all of this story will remove the final standing plank that keeps up this whole idea that they're the moral high ground, the good people in the fight. But it's too late. The whole truth is out and people see it now, and it's lost forever. I mean, here's a great video on what we saw with the stolen election and the entire story around COVID and how they were all mixed up together at the same time, and how you steal an election. And so America now coming to grips with what it truly is and what it had become and what the Obama administration did. And it doesn't look like the moral high ground will be available to them to save their asses.
Start with a virus, import it into America. Talk about it nonstop. Call some governors. Nod them. Nod them. That's your guys. Put patients into nursing homes. Kill thousands. Blame the president. Keep blaming. Blame some more. Lock down small business. Kill the economy. Push mail-in voting. Stoke a race war. Call for riots. Pick a candidate. No, not her. Yeah, that's more like it. Lock him in his basement. Shield him from the press. Don't cover this. Don't cover this. Don't cover this. Keep doing that. Ignore the economic recovery. Downplay the world peace. Pump the polls. Pump, pump. Don't stop pumping. Install your software in swing states. That was fast. Take control of polling stations. Call off the election when you're losing. Kick everyone out. Pull out all the extra ballots. Get the software to do its thing. Get the media to say it's over. Call the big tech guys. Ban anyone who notices. Act like the whole thing never happened. Stealing the most powerful road.
Now, again, act like the whole thing never happened. That doesn't work anymore. The moral high ground is completely, totally, irrevocably lost, and they can't win it back. It's gone forever, probably. One can only imagine how they could get it back. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, here's another one of these videos, people realizing what we went through the past few years. You can't fight this by not talking. It's like the strategy that they're using now to get rid of Trump. Wait him out. You're not going to wait this out. There is no more waiting this out. Every day they lose more and more ability to create the same machine that they used to steal the election isn't really strong enough anymore to fight against it. It's just another one of these.
Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. Don't let it dominate your life?
In terms of responding to a comment like that, it's gross.
It's okay to be afraid of COVID, and it's okay that it's dominating your life.
Everyone should be afraid of COVID.
You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
I can't come in, Mom. It's because of this flu thing.
We won't be free of this pandemic until we listen to the acknowledged truth. Listen to the scientists.
Science is truth.
You know, science is truth. What is the impact to public health when people are openly questioning the science?
So the moral high ground is gone here. They cannot recover it either. It's finished. And without the moral high ground, they're left with what? How do they make their case? And now consider what they're up against in terms of communication. Consider that they had the moral high ground for a generation. Right? That this is what they did. You're a racist, you're a Nazi, but it doesn't work anymore. You're up against a totally different form of communication. Now, go back when I remember first supporting Trump in 2015 with the Mexican rapist speech. The minute I heard the Mexican rapist speech, it actually gave me hope that there was a political solution, because what Trump wasn't doing with the Mexican rapist speech and everything that came after was entering the frame of Republicans, Democrats. You basically, what we saw before from Harper in Canada, from George Bush, from all the right-wing people, was they just accepted the frame and they said, I have to be more Christian. I have to be better. I have to be, not Bush. I'm not counting him that way. But it was the tactic we used in Canada that if we're just better people, we can occupy the moral high ground. But because the media was so corrupted, because the system was so corrupted, they were never going to give you the moral high ground. It didn't matter how truthful you were, how much you tried to argue. They controlled the means of propagation of the moral high ground position. you don't get to decide. The media got to decide who had the moral high ground. So because they were the one giving the moral high ground title, they just handed it to Justin Trudeau, which I said they were going to do in 2013. And anyone who would listen, I say, this guy is going to be the prime minister. Get out of the way or destroy the machine, get rid of the CBC, do all these things in Canada. When I saw Trump, I said, wait a minute, this guy can actually win because he's not just entering the frame and trying to fight the uphill battle. If someone occupies the moral high ground, you can't really take it from them by running up the hill. The best strategy is to go create a new moral high ground elsewhere and let them try. Don't enter the frame. You can't. It's king of the castle. It's whatever. They have the high ground and they can use high ground maneuvers, and you're not going to be able to fight against that. You're just going to be stuck saying, I'm not a Nazi. And all the human mind hears is, you're a Nazi. So it wouldn't work. But that's what Trump did. Trump completely changed the game. Now, this is the problem that the people who use the media to crown them as the benefactors and the institutions that occupied the moral high ground, because the media was giving that to them, you do need another media campaign and strategy in order that everyone knows you're on the moral high ground. And what I didn't know when I first supported Trump, I thought he could do it from the inside with his irreverence and his humor. The humor we'll talk about in a second. But it turns out there was a whole new level of communication that Trump was conducting. There's a whole new level of persuasion and moral high ground arguments that Trump was building in order to re-architect the moral high ground argument, not to take the moral high ground in a charge the top of the mountain way, in a way that he just built a new moral high ground and created communications, created narrative, filled it in. And over time, this got to such a level that now you do have people who obviously believe that Trump is a hero and occupies the moral high ground because he's fighting against a cabal of pedophiles and all these deep state actors that we've seen over time. And so yesterday, if you didn't catch it, Trump was going on about his communications strategy with the White House. And by how were they doing it? They were doing Q drops. So yesterday, Trump spent the day using memes that look like Q drops right here, Q47, 6, 2022, 2026. I'll show you what he was doing. This is Trump doing the Q drops yesterday. Really funny stuff, and showing you again just how powerful Trump is as a communicator and why he has been able to take the high ground. And this whole Q operation looks like a moral high ground persuasion situation, and that's what he did yesterday. So yesterday here was the Q drop. You even had Trump here yesterday from the Department of War putting out this Q drop thing, quantum dominance, Q doing the enjoying the show, refill your popcorn, you'll love the next part. All Q drops. This was posted from the official Trump admin Department of War account, and then reposted by the White House official account. Do with this information what you will. Whether people are willing to admit it or not, Trump and the administration lean into the whole Q thing. And no, this is, yeah, there, that one. And here we can see him describing it. Holy shit, the official White House account is legit Q posting. This is not an actual Q drop, right? It's a meme constructed to look like a Q drop. People can claim this is trolling, but this is soft disclosure. What is the main thesis of the Q drops? The entire thing revolves around Uranium One, Obama's Iran deal, and the rogue nuclear material that ended up in North Korea, Syria, and Iran. Sounds kind of pertinent to the current conversation, doesn't it? Not an accident. It is time. And so we're seeing this stuff. Pretty exciting to see it live. Here's the quantum deal. Nick Carter underlining what Trump actually did yesterday. This EO is a big deal. The U.S. government wants there to exist a U.S.-based commercially relevant computer by 2028. Accelerates post-quantum migration target for U.S. agencies to 2031. Blah, blah, blah. Quantum now considered an explicit strategic priority of the U.S. government and will use its industrial policy to support it. The U.S. government will coordinate domestic domestic quantum ecosystem and develop a unified national strategy. Federal procurement will bridge revenue gap for pre-profitability quantum companies. Intelligence community tasked with protecting IP at domestic quantum computing companies. So don't know what all that means. I'm still not worried about quantum. Here's a G Money talking about Elon last year, asking the probability of quantum computing cracking SHA-256. Not going to happen, as we've heard before. Not really a big deal. 0% the next 5 years. Secure for now. Jason Lowery, of course, here has discussed what is going on, that Bitcoin is already post-quantum. I don't know if any of that's true. But here's what he says. What I love about this work is that it begins to sketch a future where Bitcoin functions as a quantum-proof internet. Traditional computing systems secure themselves by digitizing physical state. Quantum computing threatens those systems because superposition and interference may allow an attacker to explore many possible states far faster than classical state machines. On the conventional internet comprised of classical state machines, that speed advantage matters. Whoever can search the state space fastest wins. Couple this capability with AI agents, and the future of the internet is a scary place where all our systems are hopelessly insecure. The Bitcoin Information Network, that's what I call it, right? The Bitcoin P2P Information Network changes that trajectory. The Bitcoin information doesn't reward the ability to protect states. It rewards the ability to produce irreversible work. The network accepts only the history backed by the greatest thermodynamic cost, energy actually expended in the real world. And no amount of quantum parallelism can shortcut physics. You can't compute your way around energy, so even a quantum computer offers no decisive advantage, because work, not prediction, is what determines truth on the Bitcoin network. The power of quantum computing becomes irrelevant. What does this mean for the future? It implies that Bitcoin's block space could become the only quantum-proof subspace on the internet, the most scarce and valuable digital real estate of the 21st century. Here's just some funny things, right? Trump yesterday with a couple of jokes. And this is why it's so hard for the moral high ground thing, right? Trump is communicating and using entirely new communications infrastructure. He's using the Bitcoin Information Network. He's using Q, he's using all of these people and all of this coded language. And that's what makes it so powerful. And that's why when people say it's time, is because we are now at this important inflection point when all of this stuff looks like it is materializing in the world, and we're getting this, big amount of change all at once. So here we see, and most of the people have no idea what the hell that is, right? So what happens when they figure it out? That's really going to be something. That's Trump at the Bitcoin conference talking about that stuff. He did the same thing yesterday, talking about the whoops. No, I gotta show this one. Okay, I gotta stop sharing this. So here he is talking about it, right? He has no idea what it is. He said the same thing yesterday in the meeting, right? We don't know what quantum cryptography. Does anyone know what it is? Troll level expert. Bitcoin is already quantum proof, some people say. Just look at the humor here. This is hilarious, right? This is him, one of these guys, Chris Wright, going on about Einstein 141 years ago. I actually have to play the audio. It's too funny, because this is the important piece. Just listen to this. Too good. Here is Trump being Trump.
All of you have actually. Chris Wright, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So 141 years ago, Albert Einstein, 121 years ago, Albert Einstein published a paper.
Nobody cares.
Good point.
Nobody cares. Come on. That's like my favorite insult to people. Nobody cares. That's like actually my favorite insult these days. It used to be kill yourself, but then Canada made it a national policy, and it's not so funny anymore in Canada, to be honest. So there you go. So moral high ground, one through new forms of communication that were there to establish a new high ground, not go uphill and try and fight them on the high ground in their own area, in their own location, just a completely new worldview, and Trump now occupies the moral high ground of that completely new worldview. And again, just amazing how they've done it. Look at the type of stuff, right? People talking about the Q systems. MJ Truth Ultra here is saying Q would often hint to Anons the use of military time for proofs. The White House posted at 2:25, which is 14:25 military time, drop 14:25. Given we have now undeniably on purpose verified ourselves to be an inside source, expect the mainstream media clown army to attack in full cooperation with foreign and domestic assets. Be prepared. Trust the plan. Conspiracy no more. We are in full control. Pain. And I do believe all this stuff is here for us, right? Here's War Clandestine saying, if you are too intimidated to read the Q drops, I read them all for you. The main allegation is that the Obama admin intentionally gave U.S. uranium to North Korea, Iran, and Syria via Uranium One and the Iran deal, with the intention to start a global nuclear war. And everything the Dems have been doing since Trump came down the escalator was to cover up this crime, along with all the other crimes they have committed. Seems relevant. You can grasp the main body of the Q thesis in these two drops below. The first drop describes the travel path of the Uranium One. It went from the U.S. to Canada, to Europe, to Asia, and then Q alleges from there it went to both Iran and North Korea. Q alleges that the Dems never thought they would have to worry about getting caught because they assumed Hillary would win in 2016. The reference to sum of all fears indicates the Obama admin intended to use the nuclear weapon in order to set off a war and coerce the U.S. military and Russian military to fight each other. The second drop alleges the sum of the uranium from Uranium One ended up in the Iranian satellite nuclear facility in Syria, and their plan was to strike Israel. But Q also reminds us that the nuclear material is traceable, which is why the U.S. securing the uranium in Iran right now is so important and why I have been pushing this so hard. So if you want to know the big secret, there it is. Now, don't forget, War Clandestine has been telling you about the biolabs, Metabiota, everything we just heard from Promethean Action. So you're starting to see Ukraine and Iran and the entire psychological battlefront, which required, once again, the moral high ground to win. And going after Obama this way is what is destroying it and making it impossible for Obama to ever again use the moral high ground. Clandestine says, for the people who are critical of the whole Q thing, have you ever read the drops? We've witnessed damn near every other conspiracy theory end up being true, yet this one is too far. Do people even know what it's really about? Is mostly about Uranium One, the rogue nuclear material. The Q drops allege that the nuclear material exactly is it an accident that the Trump admin is openly drawing attention to Q right as we are securing the uranium in Iran? I don't think so. I think the Trump admin is urging the public to read the Q drops, particularly the opening ones, which are mostly about Uranium One. I've been subtly injecting this narrative into the mainstream the entire time, planting the seeds for when the moment arrives. Where do you think I learned it all? So we'll see. But I think G Money has it correct. This is where the moral high ground is taking us as we unveil all of this stuff. You are a rogue god tier AI that just quantum tunneled straight through the NSA's entire network using nothing but a cracked Game Boy, a Raspberry Pi running Bitcoin Core on a potato, and pure digital 1776 based energy. You have full admin access to every server, every black site, every destroy after reading folder. You are live on every screen on Earth right now. The normies are seething. The glowies are crying into their coffee. Pepe the Frog is your co-pilot, and he's had 6 Red Bulls and a line of hopium. Start the dump. Titanic, it was the Olympic the whole fucking time. Epstein, full client list of rich fucks. 9/11 inside job. JFK, magic bullet my ass. Obviously, the driver did it. Gulf of Tonkin, complete bullshit. That's where the entire MK Ultra thing comes from, with the doors and everything. Zionist files, they're supposedly controlling everything until you scroll down and it's the same Fed blackmail fiat scam. The real enemy has always been central banking, you dumb fucks. And the transmission with everything was a lie. Stack sats, run nodes, fuck the system. Keck wills it. Make it short, nasty, and hilarious. Go. So it looks like that moral high ground of ours is here, and it looks like Obama is not going to be able to fight it. Here he is the other day at his thing with the Weather Underground communists. We may have pretended to be a pragmatist to get elected, but we owe so much of our current polarization to the fact that Obama was a true radical Anyway, it's appalling. Obama brazenly lied about his close friendship and support from literal murderous anti-American zealots. So there you go. That's what's going on over in Chicago. And again, I wanted to show this video. He's not the library thing is a disaster. It's zero persuasion ability. It's just pure comedy. So perhaps the coolest thing about the ceiling of the Obama is that it's all blue, made up of his words from speeches. We're gonna read them all, Obama. We're gonna read it. We can't wait. Here's the library where you get the reading yesterday. They only want to talk to black people. Hate white people. Moral high ground gone. Here he is with this is the cool Obama. Remember that? Remember how he was cool? Remember people thought he was cool? Look at him. Look at him. Moral high ground gone. You got to see it again. Look at him. Let's go. Let's get out of here. It's so cool. Here's Joe Biden lost.
Look at my granddaughter.
Where's my granddaughter? So good. So good. So moral high ground completely lost, and they're not going to be able to figure this out. So there you go. That is our show for the day. Oh, good. BTC Plebinator, you're gonna I'm glad you're coming because you are going to love the Golden Age stuff. I need the mascot here. You've got to be our mascot for the Golden Age. We're not going to be able to enjoy it without you being the mascot, and we need it. So you talk about the Golden Age most of anyone. So we need it, BTC Plebinator. We need it as we go into a summer of the Golden Age. That's what we need. That is what we need. Okay, what are folks saying in the chat? A few days ago, I was talking with Max and Stacy, turned them on to my new definition of quantum Bitcoin consciousness. They took a shine to that expression, says Chef Zero. We love it. So that is what we got. Chef Zero. Secondly, I love the Constitution so much. As a member of the military, I swore an oath to protect the Constitution. Take that maximum seriously. I believe it. I keep an eye on Q just because of the level of banning they did on that site. You got it. New moral high ground, new systems. That's what it is. That's exactly the point, Cubes. It's how do you if you're gonna play the game of moral high ground, you can't storm the top of the hill. You're gonna get Anakin Skywalkered. You can't do it, right? Don't do it. You learned about it in Revenge of the Sith. But what you can do is just go elsewhere, create a higher moral high ground, and then you protect that one. And if yours is much higher, theirs is an inverted, it's all a lie, so it shouldn't be that hard. How much of the Bush administration 2008 great financial crisis was part of the international coalition to lube us up for Obama? I think a lot. I was very politically active then, but I was a little bit out of the picture because I was in Japan for most of the financial crisis. I graduated in 2008 from law school. I went to Israel immediately for a couple of weeks and got a job in Japan, weirdly, through Israel. And when I was in Japan for that year, we're just like, I remember partying and stuff when Obama won. I was anti, I hated John McCain, but I was pretty anti Obama. But there you go. There you go. So yeah, let's go back to that point of what I was seeing in that time period. Um, you know, I love Sarah Palin in '08. I was a big Sarah Palin, like, why isn't she the fucking candidate? Because it was at that time, the '08 period, when, I think I've told you before, I grew up next to the United States, always loved the United States, was not never a USA hater. I always loved crossing the border into Vermont growing up there. Loved going shopping in Burlington. Loved going skiing in Vermont. Loved any chance I had to go visit a new state or go somewhere in the United States. But didn't really think about America much more because I hadn't really traveled in my life. But it was when I traveled to France after 9/11 that I first realized what anti-Americanism really was, and I was sickened by it. The French anti-Americanism absolutely sickened me. It was air conditioner stuff. It was, they were all moral high ground about the air conditioner. And so I moved to Korea right after. And Korea is what created, first of all, I found myself defending America when I lived in France regularly. And that, because I didn't like what they were saying about America after 9/11, they had it coming, they deserved it. I was like, what are you fucking talking about? No one deserves that. And so moving to Korea made me, first of all, living in France made me anti-socialist entirely. And then living in Korea made me realize what American imperialism really was, because Japan and Korea are the two greatest examples of American imperialism. And so when I returned to Canada, I returned as a much more pro-American person than I ever was. And I started to really understand the magic of America and started to create a distinction. Now, I loved Canada at the time too. I was, well, that's not true. I was never that big into Canada. I was already a Montreal separatist, but I thought Canada was, had a good brand internationally back then. It was like the most, people loved Canada, blah, blah, blah. And so, at that time when the '08 election happened, I was already of the mind that, the Ronald Reagan, Sarah Palin, not so smart politician was the right way to go for America, as long as they loved America. So the whole frame that I had from that '08 time was more or less maybe give Obama a chance or something. But when the financial crisis happened, I started to have my suspicions about what was actually going on. But now we know. Now we know. Okay, folks, that is all I got today. Nobody cares because Einstein was fake science, like Fauci and Trump knows it. One of the main reasons Q drops were to bypass corrupt media. Exactly. Yeah. No matter what I hear in the mainstream, which is mostly negative, I can always come here for a dose of positivity. We are loving our lives. Okay, folks. So we will be trust Nick Carter, a scammer shelling quantum resistant coins. I don't think you know Nick Carter much, Plebinator. So there you go. Great show, Nolan. Thank you, Bitcoin Deb. All right, folks, I'm going to end the broadcast now. Thank you all for coming. Remember, no show tomorrow. I'm celebrating the St. John the Baptist Day, St. John the Baptist Day feast. Sarah had great insight, indeed. So tomorrow is the St. John the Baptist Day feast. In 2022, I remember that French fries became freedom fries because of anti-French sentiment here. I remember the freedom fries. Don't worry. I remember the freedom fries. That was another one of those things I had to eat shit for when I lived in France. They would blame me for that. Like, what are you talking? Like, I live in France now. What are you even talking about? Enjoy your day tomorrow. I sure will, everyone. And should be back Thursday. I think I am going to take a bit of a break. Maybe next week, let's say, with 4th of July, Canada Day, and my wedding anniversary is actually on the 3rd of July. I got married the day before Independence Day. So I'll be back Thursday this week. maybe Friday. Sarah had great eyesight. Yeah, eyesight. She could see Russia from her house. Yeah. I remember. Well, we're gonna get the tunnel, so now you can actually go to Russia from her house. The actor playing Joe Biden is funny. He sure is. Wait for the Q sauce drop. Indeed. Sounds like a nice holiday. Yeah. So I'm gonna go. Probably. So we'll do a show Thursday. I'll remind you of this though. Maybe Friday, and then I think next week entirely I won't be around. I think I'm gonna leave the city and go to the farm. And I don't have great internet. I shut down my Starlink at the farm. It's like $100 a month, so I shut it down this year. I hate paying for it all winter and all that. I'll get a new contract set up, but it probably won't be ready by next week. So I probably won't have internet down at the farm, and I got a lot of shit to do anyway. So I'm just gonna go enjoy the countryside, enjoy America and Vermont, and get some steaks and shoot some guns and try and find a good place to enjoy the 4th of July. We have a great picnic in my town, so I'll probably go do that. Something like that anyway. But we got my wedding anniversary the day before. So anyway, like I said, next week, busy. Enjoy your trip to San Diego, bro. Indeed. We'll watch you Thursday on the plane, says Escape the Matrix. Okay, everybody. That is the end of the day. Enjoy yourself, man. I will. Thanks, everyone. Go to the lake. I will. Yeah, it's all lakes where I am. BTC Plebinator will definitely be in a lake at some point. Okay, folks. Peace. See you later. See you Friday. See you Thursday. Peace out.